everyone for coming to our presentation today. We really want to share a few things with you on what we have found has actually worked within our conference. I used to be part of Mary Mother of God conference, as well as what we found was helpful at the Halton Particular Council. So we'll go over some of those today. No, that's okay. One moment, please. Ruby, come on. Okay, well, she's working on that. What we're actually going to cover today is really what are some of the reasons for the change that we actually made back in the Halton area, what we observed, and really kind of looking at what the change process is and what the impact of that change was.
Big that test. Changes. The face of spring. Changes. The one changes. The face of spring. Changes.
So it's really about facing change, and sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable. You're not sure of what your steps are, but some really impactful, meaningful outcomes can really happen if you're willing to try one or two things. Okay.
So I'll just start. So my name's Linda Alexander, and my introduction into the ministry was about 8 years ago. And I went to volunteer at breakfast programs at some of the impoverished schools in the downtown core of Hamilton. And I'd just been packaged out of my job, so I had time on my hands, and I ended up collecting used clothing for people in Hamilton from my network in Oakville. And I just wasn't aware that there were needs right where I live. And I didn't really have an idea that the depths of the poverty in my own community and what my neighbors in need were enduring. So I realized I'd been called into the ministry. I'm a single mom. I've been on my own with my girls for many years, but I was financially favored. So my dream is for the children we serve to have the same opportunities, dreams, and hope that my own daughters have. So make hope happen. So that's the whole saying on our t-shirt.
Hi, I'm Judith Nutt, and 5 years ago I joined the ministry. I didn't know a lot about St. Vincent de Paul, and I had a conversation with Linda Alexander, and she invited me to help at a clothing drive, fold clothes one Monday, and I was not busy that day, and didn't really appeal to me very much, but because I wasn't busy, I thought, okay, I'll go help. Anyway, conversations, a little bit of my eyes being opened to poverty in Oakville, and I decided that I would be able to open a little bit of time for St. Vincent de Paul, and some of the stories that Linda shared with me touched my heart, and from that point on I changed what I was doing and focused a little bit more of my time on St. Vincent de Paul, and then jumped in with 2 Feet. That was 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I've learned so much from the families. I've learned so much about St. Vincent de Paul and about the people that we work with and the people who we serve, that I just realized there's so much work to do, and it's a real passion of mine now. So I haven't looked back, and it's changed my life quite a bit, actually.
So for me, I joined about 4 years ago at Mary Mother of God conference. I had always wanted to be in St. Vincent de Paul since I was a little girl, as a matter of fact. And I was really touched by some of the work that was done in some of the communities that I grew up in. And being from Cape Breton, there are many communities and many people who struggle very hard, very poor economic circumstances. And it's the desire to actually help other people. And throughout my life, although I am well educated and currently have a really good job, I've suffered some financial challenges over the years through life, and really believe I bring a full understanding. Everyone's life is really different, but we also make a lot of assumptions about when we meet someone, and we make automatic assumptions about their life, but we don't always know what's really going on in the rest of their lives. So I ask you to think a little bit open and a little bit differently about how we do our work. And when I moved to Oakville, I church hopped for a little bit, and then I went to Mary Mother God and met Judith on my very first day. And it was the day of one of the days where they were asking for donations for school supplies, so our backpack program. And chatted with Judith, and she's amazing. And then she introduced me to Linda, who is also amazing. And so I became one of the volunteers at Mary Mother of God, and I've recently moved and have to get back into another parish. So you'll learn more about me in the future as we go forward. So just want to kind of get everyone rooted today in the conversation that we're talking about. And so we all kind of have a center core, a reason why we actually want to be part of the ministry, and God has also called us into this type of work. But we have lots of branches out there. So there's lots of different activities, lots of different options for how you can actually contribute to make meaningful changes in other people's lives, which then impact us as well. So I want to make sure that we're all kind of grounded in that work. And so if there are some things that you hear today that really spark meaning to you, that's wonderful. That's what we're really hoping to do. And as Linda and Judith both share some of the experiences at the conference and council level, we really ask you to start making some of those connections. It's kind of like, oh yes, we've struggled with that where we are. Maybe we could take that on. Or making a connection to, oh, there's someone else in the room and they share a little bit of their story. That it's like, oh, I need to get to know that person a little bit more so that I can learn from them at the same time. So we just ask you to think about that as we go through the rest of the presentation.
So I'm going to go through first what we observed at our conference level when I first started. And it was a small group of seasoned and very dedicated volunteers that cared deeply for the families. But some were resistant to change, so they were blocking new ideas and new solutions. And we also had a problem, there was a few toxic internal relationships that were just contributing to this negative culture. And that culture was causing some people to leave the group, and it was a barrier to people wanting to join the group. So we also had a small number of families were being served, even though the church was in the walking distance of a housing complex. And there was very little awareness of all the other outreach groups in the area. Little awareness. Do you want to get the door?
I have to go behind you, sort of.
And also little awareness of all the programs, opportunities, and services that were available to the families. So we were just too internally focused. And the relationships with the families tended to be very transactional in nature, handing over a food voucher, providing a bag of used clothes, delivering furniture. And all of that was needed to ensure the basic needs of the families were met. But charity really was the primary focus, and there was not yet an environment that was open to systemic change work that could really help to lead the families to a healthier and more sustainable condition. And there's also minimal awareness within the congregation and the school communities of the needs of the families that we were witnessing, and also the work of the ministry. And this lack of awareness then led to low financial support from the congregation and the schools. Even though our parish resides in a very, very affluent neighborhood of Oakville, and it has a large financial capacity to support the ministry. So, the next slide. So the big takeaway was, we were not reaching our potential to serve.
Which is a similar thing that we observed at the council level. And I stepped into the big shoes of Paul LaFontaine, which was the particular council president before me 3 years ago. And he had a dedicated group of presidents who would come to the meetings, which were most of the time were every 2 months. And when I first started to go to those meetings, I observed that I don't think people knew each other. There were no name tags. People would look around the room. There would be some familiar people turning up, but it wasn't apparent that people really knew the people that were sitting next to them. So there was potential to become a little bit more aware of other people who are meeting with you, but also because you're all like-minded in mission and in our values and what we were trying to achieve, there was potential there to work on that, to kind of bring people together. So with that limited dialogue, there wasn't much chatting going on in the meeting either. It was more about an opportunity to convey information, but a little of that sharing where we learn from each other. And that's a really important thing, because what we were seeing were many of the conferences working in silos, and not even a neighboring conference, not really speaking to the neighbor and knowing, well, we do that, we've been doing that for so long, and we overcome those challenges. So there wasn't any of that going on, so lots of potential there. Also, only the presidents were attending. So if the presidents were able to attend at that time, 11 conferences, that meant that it was really on them to share that information back to their groups. I don't think there was any new members coming to those meetings. It was just a small group of presidents who kept coming. Also, there was a website, and the website was underutilized. Not really visited, not really used as a tool, but somebody very bright, very dedicated, waiting for him to be able to put more into it so that we could use that tool to a greater degree. So, all in all, it just seemed that there was a huge amount of potential to work together in much a greater capacity, and also to learn from each other. So, again, we wanted to reach your potential. Okay, so that was the same thing.
Wow.
Great. So did anything that we talk about resonate with anyone here in the room?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every single point.
Absolutely.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely. That's what
we figured.
Yeah, and there's opportunities for change within those, right? We often look at those challenges, and some days it's really hard when you're hitting them time and time and time again, but sometimes if you can get your group to look at what's the opportunity that's actually coming from this, it can help shift things, but it takes a lot of leadership.
I'm from Hamilton area basically, and it's good to hear this information from you folks, because I think myself and a lot of other people think that Oakville is an affluent community, and you don't think of these situations, and yet I'm sure like all over it's the same. There's a percentage of people who are in dire need.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. But our eyes had to be opened to the need, and my eyes were opened through somebody explaining that to me. Because I really had no idea. I needed somebody who had witnessed it firsthand to share it with me.
I do have a question. Among the points, one that didn't quite appear there, but came up in a previous workshop, and one I would have to add myself anyway, is the St. Vincent de Paul conferences are not very visible in their own parishes, because they don't really participate that much in their parish life as such, religiously, or even having installation ceremony for the president and so forth, and the spiritual advisor. So it's almost as if it became a little bit like the Knights of Columbus had often become, just kind of a subsidiary group off in the corner, in the wing, and very much a silo. I like the word that you use there, it's very much a silo.
Yeah, a challenge to overcome for sure in many places.
Some of the changes that we made in our conference, and the first thing we did, we addressed the internal conflict straight away in a very direct, open, and honest manner. We knew we needed to come together as a Vincentian family. We're all called into service by the Holy Spirit to be St. Vincent de Paul family-centric rather than internally centric. So the internal conflicts, we're focusing our limited energy away from the families and from our mission to do our best to serve. So we just asked the question, are our words, deeds, and actions helping the team to support the families? Or are they distracting the teams from helping the family? And we really worked hard to create a positive environment by putting the past behind us and moving together positively and collaboratively for the benefit of the families and for the volunteers. So we have a saying, PPPOP. Would you have that on your shirt?
I do.
Judith, you
I
do.